John Carter walked into the Grand Council chamber with slow, careful steps. His simple brown suit looked plain next to the fancy robes and armor of the alien delegates. The massive room stretched high above him, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some had scales that shimmered like jewels. Others had multiple arms or eyes that glowed in the dark. John kept his face calm and friendly, just like he practiced. Admiral Kextar of the Zephyrian Empire looked down at John from his floating platform. The alien's blue skin had silver markings that showed his high rank. His four arms moved as he spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "So this is the representative of Earth," Kextar said with clear disgust. "Your species barely knows how to leave your own star system. Why should the galaxy care about your little planet?" John bowed his head respectfully. "We are a simple people, Admiral. We grow food and study the stars. We only want to live in peace with our neighbors." The other aliens in the chamber made sounds that John knew were laughter. A massive creature, with tentacles for arms, slammed the floor with amusement. The insect-like Zarketh clicked their mandibles in what passed for chuckling among their kind. "Peace," repeated Warlord Thexkar, leader of the Vrakthul. His reptilian face showed sharp teeth as he smiled. "Your ships are made of metal scraps. Your weapons could not hurt a civilian transport. What could you possibly offer the galaxy?" John spread his hands wide, looking helpless. "We have learned much about farming and medicine. Perhaps we could share our knowledge of growing food in harsh conditions?" More laughter filled the chamber. John felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his expression humble and innocent. Back on Earth, Lisa Morgan was watching this meeting through hidden cameras in John's simple briefcase. She sat in a secure room deep under the mountains of Colorado, surrounded by screens and data streams. "He's doing perfectly," Lisa whispered to her team. The intelligence officer had short red hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. "They think we're completely harmless." Her assistant, a young man named Ben Clark, shook his head. "I still think this is dangerous. What if they decide to just take over anyway?" Lisa smiled coldly. "Then they'll get the surprise of their lives." Back in the council chamber, the debate continued. The Galactic Council was deciding whether Earth deserved protection as a developing species. Such protection would make it illegal for aggressive empires to attack human worlds. John had spent months asking for this status, playing the role of a desperate leader from a weak planet. "Your military consists of what?" asked Counselor Vexhai, a tall gray alien with large black eyes. "A few hundred primitive spacecraft?" John nodded sadly. "We have about 300 ships that can travel between stars. Most are for exploring or carrying supplies. We have perhaps 50 that could fight, but they are very weak compared to yours." This was technically true. Earth did have those ships, and they were visible to any alien scanner. What John did not mention were the massive construction sites hidden in asteroid fields, or the underground factories that had been working for 20 years. 50 combat vessels. Kextar laughed. "I could destroy your entire fleet with one heavy cruiser." "We know we are weak," John replied. "That is why we need protection. There are aggressive empires that take over planets like ours. We have families, children. We just want to survive." The council members talked among themselves in various alien languages. John understood some of what they said thanks to the translator implant hidden in his ear. Most thought Earth was too pathetic to bother protecting. Others said weak species did not deserve to survive in a dangerous galaxy. Finally, Counselor Vexhai called for order. The decision is made. Earth does not qualify for protected status. Your technology level is too low, and your military is insufficient. You may continue trading with approved species, but you cannot claim council protection. John let his shoulders slump in defeat. I understand. Thank you for considering our request. As he left the chamber, John heard the aliens already forgetting about Earth. They moved on to discuss trade routes and territorial disputes between major empires. To them, humanity was just another primitive species that would either grow stronger or be conquered by someone else. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks in John's simple transport ship. During the long trip, he finally allowed himself to smile. The most powerful beings in the galaxy had looked right at him and seen exactly what he wanted them to see, a harmless farmer from a backward planet. When John's ship landed at the spaceport, in Geneva, Lisa Morgan was waiting for him. They drove to a secure facility where dozens of officials were gathered around a large table. "How did it go?" asked General Rex Stone, a tough man with gray hair and serious eyes. "Perfect," John replied. "They think we're completely helpless. Kextar actually laughed when I told him about our 50 combat ships." Lisa activated a holographic display that showed the hidden construction sites throughout the solar system. Massive shapes were taking form in the asteroid belt, protected by advanced stealth technology that made them invisible to alien sensors. "The Hegemony Alliance has been getting more aggressive," she reported. "They've conquered 12 systems in the past year. Intelligence suggests they're planning something big." Dr. Amy Blake, a woman with long brown hair and tired eyes, stood up from her chair. "I've been studying their patterns. They always target the weakest species first. Based on what the Council just decided, Earth is now a perfect target." John nodded grimly. "Then we better make sure we're ready. How long until the first Dreadnoughts are finished?" 8 months for the prototype," answered Dr. Nick Foster, the chief engineer. 2 years for the full fleet. That might not be enough. "Time," General Stone said. "If the hegemony moves against us before then we'll have to improvise," Lisa replied. "But for now, our secret is safe. They think we're weak, scared farmers who can barely build a working spaceship. Let them keep thinking that." As the meeting continued, plans were made for maintaining the deception. Earth would continue to appear helpless while secretly preparing for war. The galaxy had made its choice. Humanity was on its own, just as they had always been. But unlike the aliens believed, humans had been preparing for this moment since the day they first met other species among the stars. Captain Dan Hayes stood on the bridge of his patrol ship, watching the emergency broadcast from the Kepler system. The images were horrifying. Burning cities covered the surface of 3 planets, while alien warships hung in the sky like dark clouds. The Hegemony Alliance had struck again. "How many survivors?" Dan asked his communications officer. "Less than 10,000 out of 40 million, came the quiet reply. The rest were either killed or taken as slaves. Dan closed his eyes for a moment. The Kepler colonies had been peaceful traders who sold beautiful artwork throughout the galaxy. Now their civilization was gone, destroyed in less than a day by the hegemony's war machine. "Sir, we're receiving orders from Earth Command," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from her station. "Let me hear it." The message was short and coded, but Dan understood perfectly. "Return to base immediately. No stops. No contact with other ships." The situation was getting worse, and Earth needed all its people to come home. During the 2-week journey back to Earth, Dan read every report he could find about the Hegemony Alliance. The coalition of aggressive species had formed 5 years ago under the leadership of the Vrakthul Empire. Their goal was simple: conquer every world worth having and enslave or eliminate everyone else. The Vrakthul were reptilian creatures, with incredible strength and natural armor. They loved warfare and saw other species as either useful slaves or obstacles to remove. The Zarketh were insect-like beings who worked as a hive mind, making them perfect for coordinating massive military operations. Together with a dozen smaller species, they had built the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. What made them truly dangerous was their technology. Hegemony ships had energy shields that could stop almost any weapon. Their plasma cannons could burn through the hull of a battleship in seconds. Most terrifying of all, they had something called disruptor bombs that could crack a planet's crust and make entire worlds uninhabitable. When Dan's ship reached Earth, he was immediately called to a meeting at the Hidden Command Center in Colorado. Dr. Amy Blake was there, along with several other officers he recognized. The xenobiologist looked even more tired than before, with dark circles under her brown eyes. "The situation is accelerating," Dr. Blake began, activating a star map that showed the galaxy. Red markers indicated systems under hegemony control. They've conquered 26 systems in the past 4 months. At this rate, they'll control half the galaxy within 2 years. Jake Turner, a young analyst with messy black hair, raised his hand. "What about the Galactic Council? Aren't they going to stop this?" Dr. Blake's expression turned bitter. "The Council is paralyzed. The major empires are too busy protecting their own territories to work together. The smaller species are either hiding or already conquered." She changed the display to show ship designs and battle reports. "The hegemony's military doctrine is overwhelming force. They bring 10 times more ships than they need to any fight. Their smallest attack fleet has 300 vessels." Captain Dan felt his stomach drop. Earth's visible fleet had only 50 combat ships, and most of those were decades old. Even if every human ship fought perfectly, they would be destroyed in minutes against those odds. "The real problem," Dr. Blake continued, "is that nobody has been able to hurt them significantly. Their ships are too well protected, and their weapons are too powerful. Every species that tried to fight back was crushed." Jake pulled up files on his tablet. "I've been analyzing their victory reports. The hegemony has destroyed over 2,000 enemy ships in the past year. They've lost exactly 13. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed that information. The hegemony wasn't just winning battles. They were barely taking any damage at all. "There is one pattern we've noticed," Dr. Blake said. "They always send scouts first to study their targets. Then they demand surrender. Species that give up immediately become slaves but survive. Those that resist are completely wiped out." Dan thought about the peaceful artists of the Kepler system. "They resisted?" "For about 6 hours," Dr. Blake replied sadly. "The hegemony sent one battle group, just 50 ships. It was enough to destroy everything." Karen White, Earth's defense coordinator, entered the room carrying a stack of classified files. She was a tough woman in her 50s with silver hair and a no-nonsense attitude. "I've got new intelligence from our deep space monitoring stations," she announced. "The hegemony is preparing something big. They're gathering ships from across their empire." She activated a new display showing troop movements and fleet positions. "Our agents report they're massing over 800 warships in the Vega sector. That's the largest fleet they've ever assembled." Jake's face went pale. 800 ships? What could they possibly need that many for? Karen's expression was grim. "We think they're planning to attack one of the major empires, the Zephyrians. Maybe. Or the Crystalline Confederation. A victory against a major power would make them unstoppable. Dan studied the map carefully. If they control that much territory and that many ships, smaller species like us won't even register as threats anymore. They'll just sweep through and take whatever they want. Exactly, Dr. Blake agreed. And there's something else. Our scouts have detected hegemony survey ships near the outer edge of human space. They're not just random patrols, they're mapping our defenses. The implications hit everyone at once. The hegemony was already studying Earth, just like they had studied all their other victims. Somewhere in their vast fleet, alien commanders were making plans for humanity's conquest. How long do we have? Dan asked. Karen checked her files. Based on their usual patterns, they'll finish their current campaign in 6 to 8 months. After that, they'll need time to reorganize and choose their next target. My guess is we have a year, maybe less. Dr. Blake nodded grimly. I've been studying their communications, and they definitely see us as weak. Our performance at the Galactic Council convinced them that Earth would surrender without a fight. Maybe that's what we should do, suggested one of the younger officers. If surrender means survival, have you seen what happens to their slaves? Karen interrupted sharply. They work them to death in asteroid mines or use them for dangerous experiments. The lucky ones die quickly. Dan thought about his family back on Earth, his wife teaching, school, his daughter playing in their garden. The idea of them as slaves to alien masters made his blood boil. What about asking for help? Jake suggested. Maybe some of the other empires would work with us? Dr. Blake shook her head. We tried through diplomatic channels. Everyone is too scared or too busy protecting themselves. As far as the galaxy is concerned, Earth is expendable. The meeting continued for hours as they discussed options and reviewed intelligence. By the end, one thing was clear. Humanity was alone against an enemy that had never been defeated. The Hegemony Alliance was coming, and when they arrived, Earth would face the same choice as every other species: surrender and become slaves, or fight and be destroyed. As the officers filed out of the room, Dan lingered behind with Dr. Blake. Amy, he said quietly, please tell me we have some kind of plan. She looked at him with tired eyes that held a spark of something he couldn't identify. We do, she replied, but you're not going to like it. General Rex Stone was reviewing training reports when the alarms started screaming throughout the command center. Red lights flashed on every wall as officers ran to their stations. The general's gray hair was still messy from sleep. It was 3 in the morning, and he had been working late again. What's the situation? He barked as he entered the main operations room. Long-range sensors picked up a massive fleet at the edge of the solar system, reported Commander Lisa Morgan. They just dropped out of faster-than-light travel about 4 hours ago. Rex felt his blood turn cold. How many ships? Initial count shows over 300 vessels, Lisa replied, her fingers flying over her control panel. The computers are still analyzing, but the energy signatures match Hegemony Alliance designs. The main screen lit up with a tactical display of the solar system. Red dots marked the positions of the alien fleet, arranged in a perfect battle formation just beyond Pluto's orbit. They were too far away to attack immediately, but close enough to send a clear message. Any communication attempts? Rex asked. Nothing yet, sir. They're just sitting there. Karen White hurried into the room, still putting on her uniform jacket. The defense coordinator's face was tight with worry. How did they get so close without our deep space monitors detecting them? Lisa pulled up sensor logs on a side screen. They came from the galactic north, through the dead zone between star systems. Our sensors were focused on the main travel routes. They avoided all our observation posts perfectly. Rex studied the alien formation. 300 ships arranged in battle groups, with the largest vessels in the center and smaller craft forming protective screens around them. It was a textbook invasion fleet designed to overwhelm any defense. "Sir," called out Jake Turner from his analysis station, "I'm detecting some really big ships in that fleet. The computer thinks at least 12 of them are heavy battleships." Karen moved to Jake's station and looked at his readings. "Those energy signatures are massive. Each one of those ships probably has more firepower than our entire visible fleet." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the reality of their situation. Earth's public military consisted of 50 aging ships designed for patrol duty and minor conflicts. The alien fleet could destroy them without breaking formation. "General Stone," came a voice from the communications station. "We're receiving a transmission. It's broadcasting on all frequencies, civilian and military." Rex's stomach clenched. Broadcasting to civilians meant the aliens wanted to terrify the population. "Put it on the main screen." The tactical display disappeared, replaced by the image of a massive reptilian creature. Warlord Thexkar of the Vrakthul Empire filled the screen, his scaled face showing rows of sharp teeth. His yellow eyes seemed to look directly at each person in the room. "Humans of Earth," the alien began in heavily accented English. "I am Warlord Thexkar, Supreme Commander of the Hegemony Alliance Fleet. Your pathetic little world has been selected for incorporation into our empire." Rex clenched his fists as the message continued. Around the world, billions of humans were watching this same broadcast on their televisions, computers, and communication devices. "You have exactly one solar cycle, 24 of your hours, to surrender completely," Thexkar continued. "Your governments will dissolve. Your military will be disbanded. Your people will be relocated to work camps where you can serve the greater good of the hegemony." The camera pulled back to show the alien commander standing on the bridge of his flagship. Behind him, dozens of other species worked at control stations, all slaves from conquered worlds. "Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species," Thexkar said with obvious pleasure. "We have done this to 47 other civilizations. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your ships cannot outrun our hunters. Surrender is your only option for survival." The screen showed images from other conquered worlds: burning cities, destroyed fleets, and long lines of alien slaves being marched onto transport ships. The message was clear. This was Earth's future, either way. But surrender meant some humans might live. "You have 24 hours, Thexkar repeated. "After that, we will demonstrate why resistance is futile. This communication will repeat every hour until you respond." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Rex looked around at his officers and saw the same mixture of fear and anger on every face. "Sir," whispered Jake, "how are we supposed to fight that? They have 300 ships." Before Rex could answer, the communication station lit up with incoming calls. World leaders, military commanders, and civilian officials were all trying to reach the command center at once. Within minutes, they had an emergency conference call with the heads of every major nation. "General Stone," came the voice of the American president. "Please tell me you have some kind of plan." Similar requests came from the leaders of China, Russia, the European Union, and dozens of other countries. Rex could hear the panic in their voices. Some were already talking about surrender terms. "The situation is under control," Rex replied, hoping his voice sounded more confident than he felt. "I need 6 hours to coordinate our response." 6 hours?" demanded the Chinese premier. They're talking about enslaving the entire human race. What can you possibly do in 6 hours? Rex looked at Karen White, who nodded slightly. We have options that have not been made public. Please trust us for now. The conference call dissolved into arguments as world leaders debated surrender versus resistance. Some pointed out that slavery was better than extinction. Others insisted that humans should fight no matter the odds. Finally, Rex cut the connection and turned to his staff. Lisa, get me a secure line to the asteroid facilities. Karen, I need you to contact all the hidden construction sites. Jake, start pulling together every piece of intelligence we have on hegemony fleet tactics. Sir, asked Commander Lisa, are we really going to try to fight them? Rex walked to the main display and stared at the red dots representing the alien fleet. 300 ships against Earth's secret that nobody except a few dozen people knew about. 20 years ago, when we first met aliens, we made a decision, he said quietly. We would never again be helpless against a superior force. Every year, since then, we've been preparing for this exact moment. He turned to face his officers. Send a message to all hidden facilities. Operation Lighthouse is now active. Begin final preparations immediately. Karen stepped forward. General, even with our secret projects, the odds are still terrible. Are you sure about this? Rex thought about the images of alien slaves, about human children being dragged away from their families, about Earth becoming just another conquered world in the hegemony's empire. The aliens think we're weak farmers who will surrender without a fight, he said firmly. They've had 24 hours to study our visible defenses, and they're convinced we're helpless. That's exactly what we wanted them to think. He activated his personal communicator and sent a coded message that would reach Admiral Sam Rodriguez at the Secret Fleet Command. 3 words that would change everything. The harvest begins. Around the world, hidden facilities that had been disguised as mining operations or research stations suddenly came alive with activity. Deep under Earth's oceans, massive doors began to open. In the asteroid belt, stealth fields that had hidden construction sites for decades started to shut down. Sir, Jake called out from his station. I'm detecting movement from the alien fleet. They're spreading out, probably getting ready to surround the planet. Rex smiled for the first time since the alarms had started. Let them get comfortable. In 18 hours, they're going to get the surprise of their lives. As the countdown to humanity's ultimatum continued, the galaxy was about to learn that some species were much more dangerous than they appeared. The Hegemony Alliance had conquered 47 civilizations by assuming their enemies were exactly what they seemed to be. They were about to discover that humans were very good at being something else entirely. Admiral Sam Rodriguez stood in the command center of the most classified facility in human space. The room was carved deep inside the asteroid series, hidden beneath layers of rock and advanced stealth technology. Around him, hundreds of technicians worked at stations that had been secretly built over the past 15 years. Admiral, called out Dr. Nick Foster, the chief engineer of humanity's most ambitious project. We're getting the activation codes from Earth Command. Operation Lighthouse is a go. Sam nodded grimly. He had been waiting for this moment since he was a young captain, back when humanity first learned they were not alone in the universe. Begin primary startup sequence. Bring all systems online. The command center hummed with activity as massive power cores deep within the asteroid began to activate. Through the reinforced windows, Sam could see the construction bays where humanity's greatest secret had been taking shape for 2 decades. Kelly Davis, the project's security chief, stood beside him watching the displays. She was a tough woman with short blonde hair and scars on her hands from years of dangerous work. "It feels strange to finally reveal what we've been building." 20 years of keeping this secret, Sam agreed. "Half the people working here don't even know what they've been building pieces for." That was true. The project had been so classified that most workers only knew about their small part. Some built engine components. Others worked on weapon systems. Only a few dozen people knew they were constructing the largest warships in human history. "Admiral," reported Chief Engineer Foster, "Dreadnought 1 is showing all systems green. Fusion reactors are at full power, and the main drives are responding normally." Sam activated the holographic display that showed the massive ship taking shape in the construction bay. The vessel was over 2 kilometers long and half a kilometer wide. Its hull was made of layered armor that could stop almost any weapon, and its surface bristled with gun turrets and missile launchers. "How many are ready for deployment?" Sam asked. 12 dreadnoughts are fully operational," Foster replied. 8 more will be ready within 6 hours. The remaining 6 need another day of final preparations. 26 dreadnoughts, each one more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen from humanity. Sam felt a mixture of pride and fear as he thought about what they represented. The project had begun accidentally. 30 years ago, an ancient alien ship had crashed on the moon. The crew was long dead, but their technology was intact. Human scientists had spent decades studying that ship, learning how to build things that should have been impossible. "The irony is beautiful," Kelly commented as she watched the ships coming online. "The aliens think we're primitive because we don't have their technology. They don't know we've been improving on it for 3 decades. Foster pulled up technical specifications on his screen. "The main weapons are plasma cannons based on Zarketh designs, but we've made them 30% more powerful. The missile systems use Vrakthul guidance technology, except ours are faster and more accurate." "What about defenses?" Sam asked. "Energy shields adapted from Zephyrian designs," Foster said proudly. "But we've added something no alien species ever thought of: multiple shield layers that can rotate and overlap. Even if they break through one layer, there are 3 more backing it up." The display showed cutaway diagrams of the Dreadnought's internal structure. The ship was designed around human military doctrine: overwhelming firepower, heavy armor, and the ability to keep fighting even when badly damaged. "The real advantage," Kelly added, "is that we think like humans, not like any alien species. We've studied every battle the hegemony has fought, and we know their tactics. They always do the same things because it always works." Sam nodded. Alien species tended to be very predictable in warfare. They had strategies that worked for them, and they stuck to those strategies across thousands of years. Humans were different. They adapted, improvised, and changed tactics based on what their enemies did. "Admiral," called out the communications officer, "we're receiving reports from the hidden facilities throughout the system. The ocean-based shipyards are opening their doors. The asteroid belt construction sites are powering up their ships." The main display switched to show the entire solar system. Dozens of green dots appeared as hidden human facilities revealed themselves for the first time. Near Earth, massive underwater shipyards opened to release smaller but still powerful ships. In the asteroid belt, construction sites that had been disguised as mining operations showed their true purpose. "How many ships total?" Sam asked. The communications officer checked her reports. 46 major warships, including our 26 dreadnoughts, plus 112 smaller vessels, heavy cruisers, destroyers, and support ships, and the fighter wings are launching from the hidden carriers," Sam felt his heart race. 158 ships, all of them using technology that was more advanced than anything the aliens expected from humanity. It was still fewer ships than the hegemony fleet, but each human vessel was designed to fight multiple enemies. "What about crew?" Kelly asked. "We've been training people in secret for years," Foster replied. "Every ship has a full crew of volunteers who know exactly what they signed up for. Plus, our ships are more automated than alien designs. We need fewer people to operate them effectively." The automation was another human innovation. Alien species typically used large crews because they didn't trust machines to make important decisions. Humans had no such hesitation. Their ships could fight and navigate with minimal crew, leaving more space for weapons and armor. "Admiral," announced the tactical officer, "we're detecting movement from the hegemony fleet. They're beginning to move into assault positions around Earth." Sam studied the enemy formation on the display. 300 ships arranged in classic hegemony battle groups. They were moving slowly and confidently, clearly expecting no real resistance. "They think they're attacking a planet with 50 obsolete patrol ships," Kelly observed. "They're going to get the shock of their lives." "Signal. All ships," Sam ordered. "Begin movement to intercept positions. We engage the enemy at the edge of Earth's gravity well." Throughout the solar system, the human fleet began to move. Ships that had been hidden for decades emerged from their concealment and set course for battle. The Dreadnoughts led the way, their massive engines pushing them toward the approaching aliens at speeds that would surprise any enemy. "Admiral," Foster said quietly, "there's something else you should know. We didn't just copy alien technology. We improved it in ways they never imagined. Our ships are faster, tougher, and more heavily armed than anything they've ever fought." Sam looked at the technical readouts Foster was showing him. Human weapons that could punch through alien armor, human shields that could stop alien plasma, cannons, human engines that could outrun alien interceptors. "The question is whether our innovations are enough," Sam replied. "We're still outnumbered almost 2-1. "Numbers aren't everything," Kelly said firmly. "We've been preparing for this fight for 20 years. Every system, every weapon, every tactic has been designed specifically to kill hegemony ships. They're expecting to fight primitive humans with obsolete technology." The display showed the human fleet forming up into battle groups. Each group was built around several dreadnoughts, supported by smaller ships and protected by clouds of fighters. It was a formation that no alien had ever seen before, because no alien had ever faced ships like these. Instead, Sam said with growing confidence, "They're going to fight the most advanced fleet humanity has ever built. Ships designed by people who spent decades studying their weaknesses." Foster nodded enthusiastically. Every bolt, every circuit, every line of code in these ships was created with one goal: destroy the enemies of Earth. The aliens think they know what humans are capable of. They're about to learn how wrong they are. As the human fleet moved toward battle, Sam felt a mixture of emotions: pride in what his people had accomplished, fear for what was about to happen, and underneath it all, a cold anger at aliens who thought they could enslave his species. The Hegemony Alliance had conquered 47 civilizations by being stronger, faster, and more advanced than their enemies. They were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who appears weakest. Fleet Admiral Tony Parker stood on the bridge of the ENS Retribution, watching as the largest human fleet in history formed up around his flagship. The massive dreadnought hummed with power as its fusion reactors reached full output and weapons. Systems came online. Through the viewports, he could see dozens of other ships taking their positions in perfect formation. "All vessels report ready for combat operations," announced Commander Luke Adams from his position at the tactical station. The young officer had trained for this moment his entire career, but seeing it actually happen still amazed him. Tony activated the fleet communication system. "This is Fleet Admiral Parker to all ships. Today we defend not just Earth, but the idea that free peoples cannot be enslaved by those who think might makes right. Every man and woman in this fleet volunteered for this mission, knowing the odds we face." On screens throughout the fleet, human faces looked back at him with determination. These were soldiers, engineers, pilots, and scientists who had kept humanity's greatest secret for decades. Now, they would find out if their sacrifice had been worth it. "The enemy outnumbers us," Tony continued. "But they don't know what we're capable of. They think they're fighting primitive humans with obsolete weapons. Show them what humans can really do when we're properly motivated." Captain Beth Moore stood on the bridge of her own dreadnought, the ENS Vengeance. She was a veteran commander with 20 years of experience, but she had never led a ship this powerful into battle. The weapon systems alone were more advanced than anything she had trained on. "Captain," reported her weapons officer, "all plasma cannon arrays are charged and ready. Missile tubes are loaded with hunter-killer warheads. Point defense systems are active." Beth studied the tactical display showing the approaching hegemony fleet. 300 alien ships moving in classic battle formation, confident and unhurried. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The computer estimates each of their heavy battleships has the firepower to destroy 20 normal human ships, her tactical officer reported. "Good thing we're not normal human ships." "How do our weapons compare?" Beth asked. "Our main plasma cannon should punch through their armor like paper," came the confident reply. "The missiles can track their ships even through evasive maneuvers, and our point defense can stop anything they throw at us." In the asteroid belt, Chief Engineer Roy Chen was coordinating the most complex logistical operation in human history. Dozens of hidden shipyards were launching vessels that had been under construction for years. Each ship had to be supplied with fuel, ammunition, and crew before joining the main fleet. "Dreadnought 7 is reporting some problems with their secondary shields," one of his assistants called out. "Send a repair team immediately," Roy replied. "We can't afford to have any ships operating below peak efficiency." The logistics were staggering. Each dreadnought carried enough supplies for months of combat operations. The smaller ships were packed with missiles, energy cells, and spare parts. Fighter squadrons were loaded with pilots who had trained in secret for years. "Chief," announced another assistant, "the fighter wings are requesting permission to launch." Roy checked his displays. The human fleet included 12 specialized carriers, each one loaded with advanced fighter craft. These small ships were designed to swarm enemy vessels and exploit weaknesses in their defenses. "Permission granted. Launch all fighters and have them form escort formations around the dreadnoughts." Across the fleet, thousands of fighter craft launched from their carriers like angry insects. Each one was piloted by a volunteer who knew they were flying into impossible odds. But they also knew their ships were equipped with technology that would surprise any alien pilot. Back on the flagship, Admiral Parker received reports from all sectors of the fleet. "All dreadnoughts report ready for combat. Cruiser squadrons are in position. Fighter wings have launched and are forming up." Commander Adams pulled up the tactical situation on the main screen. "Sir, long-range sensors show the hegemony fleet is about 4 hours away from Earth. They're moving in standard assault formation." Any response to our appearance? Parker asked. They've definitely detected us, but they don't seem concerned. Their formation hasn't changed, and they're not accelerating or altering course. Parker nodded grimly. The aliens still thought they were facing Earth's visible fleet of 50 obsolete ships. They had no idea that humanity had been secretly building warships for 20 years. "Sir," called out the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead hegemony vessel. Put it on screen." The main display showed Warlord Thexkar standing on his command bridge. The reptilian alien's yellow eyes showed amusement as he looked at the human fleet. "So the humans have decided to resist after all," he said with obvious pleasure. "Your little fleet is larger than we expected, but still pathetically weak. You have built larger versions of your primitive ships, but size means nothing against superior technology." Parker activated the response channel. "This is Fleet Admiral Tony Parker of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered our star system without permission and threatened our people. Leave now or face the consequences." Thexkar laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Consequences? Human? My fleet has destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your engines cannot outrun our ships. Surrender now, and some of your people may survive as slaves." "I have a better idea," Parker replied, calmly. "You can surrender to us, and we'll let you leave alive." The alien warlord's amusement turned to anger. "You dare mock the Hegemony Alliance? Very well. We will destroy your fleet and then burn your cities as an example to other species who think they can resist us." The communication ended, leaving the human fleet alone with their preparations. Around Earth, civilian populations watched the approaching battle on their screens, knowing that their freedom and possibly their lives depended on ships they had never known existed. "All ships, this is Admiral Parker," he announced over the fleet channel. "The enemy has rejected our offer to surrender. They think they're fighting the same humans who begged for protection at the Galactic Council. Time to show them what we've really been doing for the past 20 years. Captain Moore checked her ship's systems one final time. "All stations report ready for combat. Weapons charged, shields at maximum, engines at full power." "Excellent," she replied. "Today we find out if 20 years of preparation was enough." Commander Adams was coordinating the fighter squadrons from his position on the flagship. "All fighter wings report ready for engagement. Pilots are requesting permission to show the aliens some new maneuvers." Admiral Parker smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Human pilots had been studying alien fighter tactics for years, developing new strategies that no alien had ever seen. The hegemony was about to get a very unpleasant education. "Signal all ships," Parker ordered. "Advance to engagement range. Today we make sure that Earth remains free, and the galaxy learns that humans are not as helpless as we appear." The human fleet began moving toward the approaching aliens with coordinated precision. Dreadnoughts led the way, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. Smaller ships formed protective screens, while fighters swarmed around the capital ships like protective clouds. Behind them, Earth watched and waited. Billions of people looked up at the stars, knowing that their fate was being decided in the darkness between worlds. They had lived their entire lives thinking humanity was weak and alone in a dangerous galaxy. They were about to discover that their species had been preparing for this moment since the day they first met alien civilizations. The Hegemony Alliance had picked the wrong planet to threaten and the wrong species to underestimate. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Grace Hunt stood at the command station aboard the ENS Defiance as the human fleet approached the hegemony formation. Her ship was positioned at the front of the advance, close enough to see the alien vessels clearly on her screens. Each enemy ship was massive and threatening, covered in weapon turrets and protected by energy shields that glowed faintly in the darkness of space. "Distance to enemy fleet?" she asked her navigation officer. 2,000,000 kilometers and closing, came the reply. At current speed, we'll be in weapons range in 30 minutes. Grace activated her communication system and opened a channel to the alien fleet. It was time for the hegemony to learn exactly what they were dealing with. "This is Admiral Grace Hunt of the Earth Defense Force," she announced. "You are trespassing in human space and threatening the people of Earth. This is your final warning, to withdraw immediately." The response came quickly from Supreme Commander Vexmore, the overall leader of the Hegemony Invasion Force. The alien appeared on Grace's main screen, a tall, insect-like creature with multiple arms and glowing compound eyes. "Admiral Hunt," Vexmore said, in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "Your species continues to amaze us with its stupidity. You have perhaps 100 ships against our 300. Your technology is decades behind ours. Why do you persist in this futile resistance?" Grace smiled coldly. "Because you haven't seen our technology yet. These aren't the same ships your scouts reported." "Larger versions of primitive human designs," Vexmore replied dismissively. "Our sensors show your vessels use basic fusion drives and simple energy. Weapons. One of our heavy battleships could destroy your entire fleet." "Would you like to test that theory?" Grace asked. Before the alien could respond, she nodded to Captain Joe Miller, commander of the Dreadnought ENS Thunderbolt. Joe had been waiting for this moment, his ship's weapons trained on a group of hegemony scout vessels that had moved ahead of the main formation. "Target the lead scout ship," Joe ordered his weapons officer. "Full-power plasma cannon, single. Shot!" The Thunderbolt's main weapon fired a brilliant blue beam that crossed the distance between fleets in less than a second. The alien scout ship, a vessel that should have been protected by advanced energy shields, simply disappeared in a flash of light and debris. The entire hegemony fleet stopped moving as commanders tried to understand what had just happened. On dozens of alien bridges, sensor operators reported readings that didn't make sense. "Impossible," Vexmore whispered, staring at the empty space where his scout ship had been. "Our shield should have absorbed that blast easily." "What kind of weapon was that?" Grace's smile widened. "That was our weakest plasma cannon, set to minimum power. Would you like to see what our heavy weapons can do?" Before the alien could answer, Commander Mary Price aboard the ENS Retribution opened fire with her ship's full weapons array. 8 plasma cannons and 20 missile launchers fired simultaneously at a hegemony battle group consisting of 6 ships. The alien vessels tried to maneuver and raise their shields, but it was far too late. Human weapons, enhanced with decades of research into alien technology, tore through their defenses like paper. In less than 10 seconds, all 6 ships were destroyed, leaving only expanding clouds of gas and metal. "This is not possible," Vexmore said, his electronic voice filled with disbelief. "Your weapons should not be able to penetrate our shields. Our intelligence reports showed primitive human technology." "Your intelligence was wrong," Grace replied. "You've been watching our obsolete patrol ships and thinking that's all we had. You never bothered to look deeper. On alien ships throughout the hegemony fleet, commanders were frantically checking their sensors and weapon systems. The humans had just destroyed 7 ships without taking any damage. Worse, Their energy readings showed that the human weapons were far more powerful than anything in their databases. "Admiral," called out Vexmore's tactical officer, "the human ships are showing energy signatures we've never seen before. Their weapons are outputting at least twice the power levels we expected. And their shields," added another alien. "They have multiple overlapping layers. Our standard tactics may not work against them." Vexmore tried to maintain his composure, but Grace could see the fear in his compound eyes. The hegemony had conquered 47 civilizations by being overwhelmingly superior to their enemies. Now they were facing an opponent who might actually be superior to them. "You have one chance," Grace announced over the open channel. "Withdraw from this system immediately, and we'll let you leave alive. Stay and we'll destroy every ship in your fleet." "You're bluffing," Vexmore replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "You cannot have advanced this much without us knowing. Our spies have been watching your species for years." Captain Joe Miller decided to provide another demonstration. His Dreadnought fired a spread of missiles at a hegemony heavy cruiser, each warhead using guidance systems stolen from alien technology but improved with human engineering. The alien ship tried to shoot down the incoming missiles with its point defense systems, but the human weapons were too fast and too smart. They split apart as they approached, creating multiple smaller warheads that attacked from different angles. The cruiser's shields flashed and failed under the coordinated assault, and the ship broke apart under secondary explosions. "Your spies saw exactly what we wanted them to see," Grace explained, as debris from the alien ship drifted past both fleets. "For 20 years we've been building these ships in secret while showing you our weakest vessels. You thought you knew everything about human military capability." The hegemony fleet was now backing away from the advancing human ships, their perfect formation beginning to break apart as individual commanders started to panic. Many of them had never been in a battle where they weren't vastly superior to their enemies. "This changes nothing," Vexmore declared, though he was clearly trying to convince himself as much as the humans. "We still outnumber you 3-1. Our fleet can absorb these losses and still destroy your world." "Can it?" asked Grace. She nodded to several other human captains, and suddenly a dozen dreadnoughts opened fire simultaneously. The coordinated barrage struck a hegemony battle group that had been trying to flank the human formation. Plasma beams and missile swarms converged on the alien ships from multiple directions, overwhelming their defenses completely. In 30 seconds, 12 more hegemony vessels were destroyed. 20 ships destroyed, Grace announced calmly. "Still feeling confident about your numerical advantage?" Vexmore was silent for several long moments, clearly trying to process what was happening. His fleet had just lost 20 ships without inflicting any damage on the humans. At this rate, the entire hegemony force would be destroyed within an hour. "You cannot have advanced this far," he finally said. "It's impossible. Your species was barely capable of interstellar travel 50 years ago." "That's what everyone thought," Grace replied. "But humans are very good at learning from their mistakes. The first mistake was trusting that other species would protect us. The second mistake was letting anyone see our real capabilities before we were ready to use them." She paused to let that sink in before continuing. "We've been studying your technology, your tactics, and your weaknesses for decades. Every ship in our fleet was designed specifically to kill hegemony vessels. Every weapon was built to penetrate your shields. Every defense was created to stop your attacks." The alien commander's compound eyes focused on Grace with new understanding. "You planned this. All of it. The weak appearance, the helpless request for protection, the primitive technology demonstrations, all of it, Grace confirmed. We knew that aggressive species like yours would eventually come for us, so we made sure you would underestimate us when you did. As if to emphasize her point, human fighter squadrons suddenly appeared around the hegemony fleet. They had approached using stealth technology that made them invisible to alien sensors, and now they swarmed over the enemy ships like angry insects. The alien point defense systems tried to shoot down the human fighters, but the small craft were too fast and too maneuverable. They struck at weak points in the enemy ship's armor, using precision weapons to disable engines and weapon systems. "Supreme Commander," called out one of Vexmore's officers, "we're being attacked by stealth fighters. Our sensors never detected their approach." "How many?" Vexmore asked. "Over 2,000 fighters, sir. They're everywhere." Grace watched the alien fleet's formation completely fall apart as commanders tried to deal with attacks from multiple directions. Ships that had seemed unstoppable just minutes ago were now desperately trying to defend themselves against enemies they couldn't predict or counter. "This is your last chance," she announced. "Surrender now or watch your entire fleet die. The choice is yours." Admiral Frank Lee coordinated the defense of Earth from his command ship as the full battle erupted across the solar system. The hegemony fleet had rejected humanity's surrender offer and was now attacking with desperate fury. Alien ships spread out across millions of kilometers, trying to use their numbers to overwhelm the smaller human force. "Status report from all sectors," Frank called out to his communications officer. "Dreadnought squadrons are engaging enemy battle groups near Jupiter," came the reply. "Captain Sue Taylor is leading an assault on their flagship. Fighter wings are harassing their supply ships throughout the asteroid belt." Frank studied the tactical display that showed the entire battle. Green dots represented human ships, while red dots marked the hegemony vessels. The aliens still outnumbered them, but human ships were destroying enemies at an incredible rate. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "the aliens are trying to break through our defensive line and reach Earth directly. They've committed their entire reserve fleet to a direct assault." Frank nodded grimly. This was the moment they had planned for. The hegemony was abandoning complex tactics and simply trying to punch through with overwhelming force. It was exactly what human strategists had expected them to do. "Signal all dreadnoughts in the inner system," he ordered. "Form defensive formation Alpha around Earth. Let them come to us." Near the outer edge of the battle, Captain Sue Taylor was leading her dreadnought ENS Justice in a direct assault on the alien flagship. The massive hegemony vessel was 3 times larger than her ship and bristled with weapons, but Sue had advantages the aliens didn't know about. "All weapons, target their shield generators," she ordered. "Continuous fire until their defenses collapse." The Justice opened fire with every plasma cannon and missile launcher it carried. The alien flagship's shields flared brightly as they absorbed the energy, but human weapons had been designed specifically to overload hegemony defensive systems. "Their forward shields are weakening," reported her weapons officer. 30 seconds of sustained fire should bring them down completely." "Keep firing," Sue replied. "All fighter squadrons, prepare for strafing runs on their weapon turrets." Around the flagship, human fighters darted between alien point defense fire like deadly insects. Their pilots had trained for years in simulators based on captured alien technology, learning exactly how enemy ships would respond to different attacks. Commander Pete Gray led his squadron in a flanking maneuver that the aliens never saw coming. His ships had approached using an asteroid field for cover, emerging suddenly behind a group of hegemony heavy cruisers. "All ships, target their engines," Pete ordered. "Disable them first, then destroy them at leisure." The human ships fired, in perfect coordination, their missiles striking the enemy vessel's drive systems with surgical precision. One by one, the alien ships lost power and began drifting helplessly in space. "Beautiful work," Pete commented as his squadron moved on to their next target. "The aliens fight like they're following a textbook. They never adapt or improvise." That was exactly what human commanders had counted on. Alien species had developed military doctrines over thousands of years, and they stuck to those doctrines religiously. Humans had studied those patterns and designed tactics specifically to exploit them. Back near Earth, Admiral Frank was watching the main alien assault approach his defensive formation. Over 100 hegemony ships were racing toward the planet, trying to break through before the human fleet could stop them. "Distance to enemy formation?" he asked. 500,000 kilometers and closing fast," his navigation officer replied. "They'll be in weapons range in 8 minutes. Frank activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Lee. The enemy is making their final push toward Earth. Everything we've worked for comes down to the next hour. Show them why humans don't give up." The human defensive line consisted of 8 dreadnoughts and 30 smaller ships, arranged in a formation that maximized their firepower while protecting Earth behind them. It looked like an impossible fight, but the human commanders were confident in their ships and their crews. "Sir," called out his tactical officer, "the aliens are broadcasting something. It's Supreme Commander Vex Moore." The main screen showed the insect-like alien leader standing on his command bridge. His compound eyes were filled with rage, and his multiple arms gestured frantically as he spoke. "Humans of Earth," Vexmore announced, "your deception ends now. We will destroy your fleet and then burn your cities to ash. No species defies the Hegemony Alliance and survives." Frank opened a response channel. "Commander Vexmore, you've already lost over 50 ships and haven't destroyed a single human vessel. Maybe it's time to reconsider your position." "We still outnumber you," the alien replied. "Our ships are still superior to yours." "Are they?" Frank asked. He nodded to his weapons. "Officer, who fired a single plasma cannon shot at extreme range. The beam traveled across 500,000 kilometers and struck a hegemony destroyer, punching completely through its shields and hull." "Your weapons cannot reach us at this distance," Vexmore said, but his voice was uncertain. "That was our lowest power." "Setting," Frank replied calmly. "At full power, we can destroy your flagship from here. Would you like a demonstration?" Before the alien could respond, the human defensive line opened fire with every weapon they had. Dozens of plasma beams and hundreds of missiles crossed the vast distance between the fleets, striking the alien formation with devastating effect. The hegemony ships had been charging forward in a tight formation, trying to concentrate their firepower for a breakthrough assault. That formation made them perfect targets for the coordinated human barrage. "Direct hits on 43 enemy vessels," reported the tactical officer. 22 confirmed destroyed, others showing heavy damage. The alien assault force had been cut in half by a single coordinated attack. The surviving ships scattered as their commanders realized they were facing weapons with range and power far beyond anything they had expected. Near the alien flagship, Captain Nina Ross was leading, her dreadnought ENS Vengeance in a high-speed attack run. Her ship was outnumbered 10-1, but human vessels had been designed to fight multiple enemies simultaneously. "All weapons, continuous fire on anything that moves," she ordered. "Don't give them time to coordinate their attacks." The Vengeance tore through the alien formation like a shark among minnows, Its plasma cannons destroyed smaller ships with single shots, while its missiles overwhelmed the defenses of larger vessels. Point defense systems shot down incoming alien fire with mechanical precision. "Captain," called out her tactical officer, "we have a clear shot at the alien command ship. Their shields are down, and their weapons are offline." Nina smiled coldly. Supreme Commander Vexmore had threatened to burn human cities and enslave her people. Time to show him the price of threatening Earth. "Fire all forward weapons," she ordered. "Let's end this." The Vengeance's main plasma cannons fired simultaneously, their combined power striking the alien flagship's command section. The massive ship shuddered under the impact, its hull cracking open to release atmosphere and debris. "Direct hit on the command bridge," reported her weapons officer. "The flagship is losing power and atmosphere. They're requesting permission to surrender." Throughout the battle zone, the remaining hegemony ships were falling back in confusion. Their commanders had expected an easy victory against primitive humans, but instead they were being systematically destroyed by an enemy they had completely underestimated. "Admiral Lee," came a communication from the alien fleet. "This is Acting Commander Zekval of the Hegemony Forces. Supreme Commander Vexmore is dead. We request terms for surrender." Frank looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Young men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment, preparing to defend their homeworld against impossible odds. They had done the impossible. They had defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Acting Commander Zekval," Frank replied, "here are our terms. Your surviving ships will power down their weapons and submit to escort by our forces. Your crews will be confined to quarters while we decide what to do with you. Any ship that attempts to flee or fight will be destroyed immediately. We accept your terms," came the alien reply. The Hegemony fleet surrenders. Across the solar system, Hegemony ships began shutting down their weapons and engines. Human vessels moved to surround them, ensuring that none could escape to report what had happened here. The battle for Sol was over. Humanity had faced the most powerful enemy in the galaxy and emerged victorious. But Frank knew this was just the beginning. Word of this victory would spread throughout the galaxy, and the universe would never see humans the same way again. Earth was no longer a helpless backwater planet. It was now a military power that had proven it could defeat anyone who threatened its people. The galaxy was about to learn a new rule: never underestimate the humans. President Bill Clark stood before the assembled representatives of the Galactic Council, his simple black suit a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and armor worn by alien delegates. The same chamber where John Carter had once begged for protection now buzzed with nervous energy as species throughout the galaxy tried to understand what had happened at Earth. "Honorable delegates," President Clark began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast room, "I come before you today not as a supplicant, but as the leader of a free people who have defended themselves against unprovoked aggression." Admiral Kextar of the Zephyrian Empire leaned forward on his floating platform, his four arms gesturing with obvious agitation. "President Clark, our sensors detected the destruction of an entire hegemony fleet in your system. How is this possible? Your species was barely capable of interstellar travel." Bill smiled calmly. "With respect, Admiral, your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. For 20 years, humanity has been preparing for the day when aggressive empires would threaten our homeworld." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber as delegates processed this information. Counselor Vexhai, the tall gray alien who had denied Earth's protection request, spoke with obvious confusion. You told us your military consisted of 50 primitive ships, he said accusingly. You claim to be peaceful farmers and scientists. We are peaceful farmers and scientists, Bill replied. We're also engineers, strategists, and soldiers when the situation requires it. The 50 ships you detected were indeed our visible fleet. What you didn't detect were the 158 warships we built in secret. The chamber erupted in shocked voices as aliens throughout the room realized the implications. A species they had dismissed as helpless had secretly built one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. Impossible, declared Warlord Kretar, speaking for the surviving remnants of the Vrachthal Empire. The Hegemony Alliance was the most powerful military force in known space. They conquered 47 civilizations. And now they're prisoners in our detention facilities, Bill replied matter-of-factly, along with detailed intelligence about their military capabilities, territorial holdings, and the locations of all the species they enslaved. That statement caused an even bigger stir among the delegates. Many of the alien civilizations had lost colonies or allies to hegemony aggression, but had been too weak or too frightened to fight back. Ambassador Kate Phillips, Earth's new representative, to the Galactic Council, stood beside President Clark as he continued his address. She had replaced John Carter, whose role as the helpless farmer was no longer needed. The question now, Bill said, is what the galaxy wants to do about the civilizations currently suffering under hegemony occupation. We have detailed maps of their prison camps, slave labor facilities, and military outposts. Delegate Zendar of the Crystal Confederation, whose home system had been attacked by the hegemony just months ago, spoke with obvious hope in his translated voice. Are you suggesting a liberation campaign? I'm suggesting that free peoples should not be enslaved by aggressive empires, Bill replied. Humanity is prepared to act on that principle. Admiral Kextar's blue skin darkened with what his species showed as concern. President Clark, you're talking about military action across dozens of star systems. Even with your surprising capabilities, such an operation would require massive resources. We've been planning for this possibility, Kate said, stepping forward. Our intelligence services have been mapping hegemony territory for years. We know which systems have the largest slave populations, which facilities are most heavily defended, and which supply lines are most vulnerable. She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy with hegemony-controlled systems marked in red. Green lines indicated proposed liberation routes, while blue dots marked strategic targets. The hegemony's military doctrine depended on overwhelming local defenses before anyone could respond, Kate explained. But their occupation forces are much smaller and weaker than their assault fleets. Most enslaved systems are guarded by only a few ships. Admiral Ryan Cooper, who had been silent during the earlier discussion, now stood to address the council. He wore the uniform of the new Earth Defense Force, and his chest displayed ribbons from the battle for Sol. Honorable delegates, Ryan said, humanity didn't reveal our capabilities to boast about our military strength. We revealed them because aggressive empires like the hegemony can only be stopped by superior force. He gestured to the display showing enslaved star systems. Right now, billions of beings are suffering in hegemony prison camps. Their home worlds have been stripped of resources while their people work as slaves. This will continue unless someone with the power to stop it takes action. Counselor Vex High spoke with obvious nervousness. Admiral Cooper, you're proposing that Earth become the galaxy's military police force. What gives you the right to make such decisions? The same right that any free people have to defend themselves and others, Ryan replied firmly. The right to say that slavery and genocide are wrong, regardless of which species commits them. President Clark nodded to Ambassador Phillips, who began outlining the practical details of what Earth was proposing. "We're not asking for control over liberated systems," Kate explained. "Each freed civilization would govern itself according to its own traditions. We're simply offering to break the chains that bind them." "And what do you want in return?" asked Admiral Kekstar suspiciously. "Assurance that aggressive expansion and enslavement will not be tolerated by the galactic community," Bill replied. "We want a galaxy where peaceful species can develop without fear of conquest." The debate continued for hours as delegates discussed the implications of Earth's proposal. Some species were enthusiastic about the prospect of liberation for enslaved worlds. Others worried about humanity becoming too powerful. Finally, Councillor Vexhai called for order. "President Clark, this council cannot authorize military action in sovereign territory, even hegemony territory. Each member species must make its own decision about supporting such operations." "We understand," Bill replied, "but we wanted you to know our intentions before we began. Earth will not stand by while sentient beings suffer in slavery." As the session ended, delegates gathered in small groups to discuss what they had learned. Many were already sending messages to their home governments, reporting that the galaxy's balance of power had fundamentally shifted. Over the following weeks, the response was overwhelming. Dozens of species that had lost people to hegemony aggression volunteered to support liberation operations. Others offered intelligence, supplies, or safe harbor for rescued populations. Admiral Ryan now stood on the bridge of his flagship as the first liberation fleet prepared to depart Earth. 26 human dreadnoughts led a formation that included ships from 18 different species, all united in their determination to end hegemony oppression. "All ships report ready for departure," his communications officer announced. "Signal the fleet," Ryan ordered. "Course for the Kepler system. It's time to bring those people home." As the massive fleet entered faster than light travel, Ryan reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, Earth had been seen as a helpless backwater planet. Now, humanity was leading a galactic coalition to liberate enslaved worlds. The first liberated system was Kepler, where the peaceful artists had been enslaved. When human ships arrived, they found the hegemony garrison consisted of only 12 vessels guarding massive prison camps. The battle lasted less than an hour. As human Marines freed thousands of prisoners, Admiral Ryan received a message from the Galactic Council. 43 species had formally requested Earth's protection, offering to join a new defensive alliance. President Clark's response was broadcast throughout the galaxy. "Earth accepts the responsibility of protecting free peoples from aggressive empires. Our dreadnoughts will patrol the space lanes, ensuring that no species suffers the fate of hegemony victims." Within a year, the galaxy had been transformed. Human fleets patrolled trade routes and responded to calls for help from threatened worlds. The mere presence of Earth's ships was enough to deter most aggressive actions. The hegemony's former territory was divided among the species that had originally lived there, with Earth helping to rebuild civilizations that had been destroyed. Former slave camps became schools and hospitals. As Admiral Ryan stood on his bridge, watching a convoy of refugee ships returning to their liberated homeworld, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. Humanity had spent 20 years preparing for war, but in the end, they had achieved something greater than military victory. They had created a galaxy where freedom was protected and aggression was punished, where peaceful species could develop without fear, where the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them. The universe had learned a new lesson. Never underestimate the humans. Not because they were violent or aggressive, but because they would never stop fighting for what was right. Earth's dreadnoughts now served as guardians of galactic peace, their very existence a reminder that some species valued freedom more than conquest. The galaxy was safer, more just, and more hopeful because humanity had chosen to use their hidden strength not for domination, but for liberation. The age of aggressive empires was ending, the age of protected freedom.